morning, everyone. It is January 6th. It is our very first podcast for Know the Rules of the Game. Welcome this morning on this beautiful Wednesday morning. We're here at our headquarters here in Irvine, California, and Mike Hannah's in beautiful New York City. So welcome.
Good morning.
Hey. So we're at the Know the Rules of the Game podcast for the latest rules on the COVID-19 PPP Relief Bill. I'm your host, Desiree Patno. I'm the CEO and president of Women in Housing Real Estate Ecosystem, NAWRB. Also, I am the chairwoman of the NAWRB Diversity Inclusion Leadership Council, the NDLC. And also, I am Desiree Patno. That was a good one. Enterprises DPE. I'm a real estate brokerage and publisher of NAWRB Magazine and our annual WER report. Today, we have our special guest, I was just mentioning, Maya Ken. She is a senior manager of Marks Paneth, LLP, based out of New York City. We have the bi-coastal action going here. So yeah. So thank you, Maya, for joining us this morning. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Yeah, all right. So a little bit about herself. As I said, she's a senior manager. She provides accounting and tax service to clients in the real estate industry. She specializes in the preparation and review of corporate and partnership tax returns, doing R&D, doing the performing basis analysis, and preparing returns with cost segregation studies. The cool thing about her is that she's worked in so many different departments, but also is the fact that she handles the real estate high net worth partnerships. So here we're talking about the SBA and we're talking about the PPP loans, which high net, so the connection to that. So we're going to take a really deep dive, very different than anyone else that you've seen out there that we've had this recording. So I'm very excited to have you. So this is your second tour of duty. So tell me about a fun fact about yourself.
All right. Well, I moved to this country when I was in fourth grade. And when I moved here, I did not speak English. So my mother and my grandmother, we lived with my grandmother at that point. They used to make me watch Wheel of Fortune as a way to learn English. And as I got better and their English, was a little not as good. And I would get the words, they would keep saying to me, "Oh, it's because you speak English so well. It's because you speak English so well." And they would get upset at me for solving the problems for them. So I love Wheel of Fortune. I try to make my kids, my little children, to watch it, but they're 9 and 6 and they tell me to turn it off.
But so is nostalgia there being that much spread of watching it between now and then? Has it changed?
No, it really has not changed. It's amazing how very similar it still is. I mean, they do change the types and the board changed, but everything is the same. Vanna White is the same and Pat Sajak are the same. And
we won't go into the plastic surgery of the same.
Yeah. I put it on and I have it in the background as much as I can.
You know what? It becomes your music. It becomes your soothing time. So yeah. I love it. So very, very cool. So thank you very much again for joining us. So fun fact about us, we have the NDLC going on right now. And today's month is Keep Achieving. So I wanted to make sure everyone know that the monthly theme of January for our 10 principles is Keep Achieving, making sure that we don't stay stagnant. I think it's so powerful for 2021 to make sure that we keep that inspirational guide to keep us going, right? So very, very cool. And then also a fun fact about us is that we're going to be talking about the ecosystem as part of the PPP. We're going to try to dig down into the various different things that are very unusual, why we touch all the things that touch land, of all the different dynamics, whether it be from technology to a ditch digger. How does that connect? And from poverty to family offices, and the integration between that is a fun fact that makes us stand apart from anyone else. So thank you very much again. So let's go on and let's start off real quickly. So everyone who's on the call and everyone who's watching us live, please send your questions in to info@NAWRB.com. Again, that's info@NAWRB.com, or you can ask them through Facebook. We will reserve time at the end to see if you have any questions that go with it, because we're so good at this. But anyway, so right. So as a disclaimer, this rule that just came out has not even been published with all the different idiosyncrasies with it. It still has a couple days out. So everything we tell you right now is to our best. What's the word would you like to use, Maya?
It's our best knowledge as it stands today. It is an ever-changing rule. There could be so many technical corrections or interpretation of this law. So this is what we know as of today, but tomorrow something can change. And we saw that with the first round of PPP loans, where it came out and it changed and it kept changed almost every day. And it was super hard to keep track of it all, but that's what we do.
From an account standpoint, could you imagine it? Perfect example. You submitted for round one and please pause because we changed the rules. So we're going to reevaluate when you were already submitted. So
definitely that happened multiple times. And you'll see when we go through all the rules, one of some things were welcomed, were the changes that came out of this second round of relief. And we'll talk about that. The taxability of the PP loans is huge. And we had to change our projections multiple times. And in December, we had to run our projections on 2 different ways because we didn't know which way it was going to go.
Well, I love it because you have job security, the complexity of your job, and we were just talking before we went live about the different ways that it could be just, did you think of this? How about this? What about this? Oh my gosh. So this is really real estate focused. So please make sure that we're really keeping it down and the gritty of everything that touches the land and how the real estate ecosystem. So take it away, Maya. Go with your rule number 1.
All right. So in my rule number 1, so President Trump signed into law the second round of COVID relief on December 27th. And included in that is the 600 stimulus payment checks that have already started being distributed. So a lot of people have received it through direct deposit. Some people are going to be receiving it soon. I believe you can go on the IRS website and see where you are and to see when you will be getting it. And this is for singles. If you would get it if you're AGI, if you're single under 75,000, and if you're married filing joint, it's 150,000. So it all depends on where you are on your individual tax return.
Okay.
And also there's the $300 in weekly unemployment benefits. So that's been extended through 2021. I'm not sure exactly what date, but it's now extended through, so you can get that. So that's like really number 1, the big thing that a lot of people were waiting for, which came through on this law that was passed.
Got it.
Now, the second thing is PPP. And PPP is huge because there was a lot of changes that went on with the second round. So the welcoming news is what I said earlier, was that now PPP loans are no longer taxable. So old and the new loans. So which means that expenses with PPP funds are now completely deductible, which was opposite what was happening before December 27th. So if you already applied for forgiveness and received forgiveness, they are still going to be considered non-deductible. So it's for anybody who took out PPP loans. So what happened with us is that we have to do our projections. So we do projections for clients at the end of the year, end of December, to see if they're going to be receiving any W-2s or where they stand for any estimated tax payments. And we had to do it multiple times we would include their PPP income and then not include it and to see where they stood. So it was a lot of back and forth, but I'm very happy that it's not included in income.
Got it.
Okay, so the next change is that if you have not applied for forgiveness, there are now 4 new types of expenses that can go against your forgiveness. The total of these 4 have to be up to 40% of the total cost eligible for forgiveness. So 60% is still payroll, but 40% could be on these 4 items, which I'm going to explain now. The first one is for your operations, and that includes software, delivery services, payment processing, human resources, accounting, and things of that nature.
Okay.
And the second one is for property damage. If you had any property damage or vandalism or looting in 2020 and that wasn't covered by insurance, that can go towards your forgiveness. The third one is for supplier costs. So if anything that's essential for your operations and it's made pursuant to a contract or a purchase order. And then the fourth one is for worker protection equipment. So it would be for if you had to comply with pandemic guidelines, such as air ventilation, or if you built some physical barriers or expansion of business space, all that can be towards your forgiveness for the original PPP, the one that you took out last year, or anyone that you might take out in the future. So again, these four things have to be 40% of the
Right.
total cost, and the 60% is payroll. So this is big for the real estate world because a lot of times, like say with the worker protection equipment, if you had built air ventilations for your buildings, if you own a commercial building and
Mhm.
you wanted to do that, you can, those costs are part of it.
So let's talk about that. We have the 40%, and we really want to amplify it to where be a little bit abstract. We have the people who we talked about before that do side hustles. They do cleaning of houses, they flip homes, they hold construction, they hold tools, because a lot of people, I mean, New York City, how could you repair properties when you don't have a parking space, let alone a place to put your car? So the idea is that storage facility, how do we address that as part of that 40%?
Well, the storage facilities, I believe, would go under your operations. So
Okay.
you might be, as the way it stands right now, you might be able to use, because that is to run your business. It's your operation cost. So you might be able to use that cost under there against your forgiveness.
So perfect. So what about then you have the ideas is that getting the supplies for technology. So for example, you have, the advancement. So you have everyone working in the office had certain internet, but then everyone had to upgrade their internet. And then if you go to a computer store right now, you can't even buy a CPU, you can't even buy computers, because the fact is that everyone had to double up their computers from the office to home. So all those additional expenses, how about that?
Yeah, that's included. The software, it specifically says payments for software and cloud computing is included in your operation. So that is definitely.
Okay. So additional tablets, phones, anything that's going to make your job easier, to make it to where you're not, your base is no longer in your office, that you're having to work from home to offset those costs to get it done. Because especially here in California, where we're based, we're at 0 ICU capacity. We are sheltered in place for a lot of the times. Real estate was actually a non-essential business. So
Oh,
the
sure.
idea,
Okay.
yeah. So it was a real big deal to say, it's not essential to do this. So what am I going to do for my movers? How am I going to get things, processed? How am I going to go repair a leak? Here, everyone in the United States, if you didn't remodel your home or didn't do some improvement during this time,
I remodeled in this year.
you were a minority. You were not the majority.
It wasn't during when we were in lockdown. It was in the summer. We weren't in lockdown at that point, but still, it was very difficult working from home. And I would be on a phone call and you hear boom, 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 boom. People, what's happening? I was like, I can't go anywhere. I can only work here.
Well, but the good thing is that we all learned a craft, which is what real estate agents do and people who work in the industry. And you all became better at YouTube of looking up how to do this repair, and what do you need to buy and why and what it costs and what the differential is between what they charge you, what they say it costs for the part, and how much time it took you to do it.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do it, but sure.
But the idea is that from a labor standpoint, and the thing is, so I love about the triple P is that the opportunities to write the debt off and the tax forgiveness that we're going to talk about. But the idea is now it's making you, force you to say, if I pay someone to do it versus if I do it myself, and what's the tax benefit is going to get me, but also what my real costs are of what my time is versus someone else. And the other factor that I wanted to talk about real quickly is your ability to get a contractor that was not already allocated for it. Finding a contractor who is very COVID friendly was your kind of, specialty. And then from there, the idea is that, their commitment to be there.
Right, exactly. And respect your how you feel about it, because there are some people that are more lenient, there are some people that are more strict, and to have multiple people in your house, at least, for me to have contractors in the house, you get a little nervous. I had to make sure everybody was wearing their masks and working, and to be respectful of the space in a small spot with me, my husband, and my 2 kids all home at the same time.
Yep.
So
Do you put
it's
the plastic up? Do you put the air out? Do you open all the doors and windows? You know, all those kind of things. So that is really, 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 really powerful. Okay, so now that we got the 40%, tell us what else we need to look at.
Okay, so more with the more changes with the new COVID relief bill is that now they're more lenient on your covered period. In the past, they said that you had to use either 8 or 24 weeks as a covered period, but now it's saying you're no more locked into that. You can use any time between the 8 and the 24. So you can pick and choose a little bit.
Okay, so with that being said, apologize. Can we pick the date we want to do the 24-week, or does it have to be from a specific time to an end time?
No, it has to be from a specific time. It starts when you take out the loan. Okay. But then you could pick anything in between. You can do 10 weeks if you wanted. You don't have to do
the full 24 weeks. Got it. It just gives you flexibility to expand that to go with it. Okay.
And also, if for a business who did not apply for the original loan last year and they were in business as of February 2020, they can still apply for round 1 of the PPP loan, which is nice. So if you didn't do it, please go and do it. And if you did do it and you want a second round, there is an opportunity to do that, but there are some guidelines.
Let's hear them. I want to know. Come on.
The 2 big guidelines is you need under 300 employees, which, you know, a lot of that's not a problem, I think, for a lot of small businesses. And you have to show, the second guideline is that you have to show that your gross receipts dropped by at least 25% in any quarter from 2019 to 2020. So you have to compare those 2 years. You can pick any quarter. So it could be quarter 1, quarter 2, 3, or 4. Okay. And you have to show that your receipts dropped at least 25%. So the loans are going to be capped at $2 million, and the deadline is March 31st. So if you are in this bucket where your gross receipts did drop for more than 25% in a quarter, go and apply as soon as you can. You have until March 31st.
Okay, so let's analyze this. So you're saying that if I made $200,000 in 2019.
Now we're talking gross receipts. It's not net income. It's gross receipts.
Right, gross receipts. If I took in my gross revenue was $200,000, and I only did $137,000 in 1 quarter. We'll break it down to a quarter. So that's pretty high. So let's do $50,000, and it's $37,000. Then I qualify for to do a triple P on the second time around. And the idea is that what they're doing is in my vision is that they're extending the opportunity to keep you sustainable, as saying, okay, now we see that what you were really doing in 2019, we're still going to use the same dollar amount, the same loan amount, and the same factor of 2.5 times that you got your first triple P loan on. But now that if any quarter went down, even if everything was going great and all of a sudden you are stay at home, like here in California, then that quarter got offset, then you turned around and say, okay, I need more money to help make up for that negative impact that went there. Now, crazy question. If you were to take out the triple P loan and you have an opportunity, can you have half of it forgiven versus 100% of it forgiven?
Yeah, whatever you have to follow the application. And whatever is not forgiven then becomes a loan, and you just have to pay it back within the parameters of the SBA loans.
So the moral of the story is always ask, do your best, follow the guidelines. And the worst that can happen is that you get the loan and they say, nope. So you pay on the loan. Right. And what's the interest rate on that again?
I don't know off the top of my head.
It's 1%. But that's okay. So the idea is that
where slow, but I wasn't sure exactly what.
That's okay. That's okay. That is a trick question. The idea is that from a real estate perspective, I call it free money. Where else can you get 1% money when you're looking at for the avenue of real estate investments, you're looking at from the avenue of, did I apply for something that I thought was legit or wasn't clear? Because think about it this way. If 85% in the state of California of all the real estate brokerages have 5 employees or less, how many have a full-time CPA or can get a hold of their CPA because of what's going on, or don't do their own, do their own taxes, or they're trying to take care of their, the average age is 49.5 years old. It takes care of the care provider for their parents or someone else and their children, and then their counterpart. So how do we have time to worry about keeping our business afloat, taking care of everyone, having children in school and doing, there you are, you have 2. Who's homeschooling them? Who's doing this? Who's doing the digital calls on them all day long, right?
Well, so, I'm lucky at my school district, they're in school full time.
Wow.
Yeah, where I am in Long Island, because I'm in Long Island, and they're in elementary school. So not all the school districts have that, but where I am there, because it's a small district. So.
Right. And so, and how, and as a side, how's that working?
Oh, it's great. They've had some cases, the school, and some classes would have to quarantine and stay home. You can choose to be virtual if you wanted, but I felt for my kids, it's better for them to go to school. They have barriers. Every desk has a barrier. All their desks are 6 feet apart. They have to wear their mask all day. There's a lot of guidelines that they have to follow, but they got used to it and it's going fine. And I'm hoping we'll continue through the end of the year. I feel like if we can make it through January, we'll be good.
It's kind of like if you were born with a cell phone in your hand, you know how to use it better than someone who wasn't.
Oh, sure.
You're born with a mask, and at that age, 6 to 9, you said, right? You have the capability of acclimating yourself to the environment. I used to live in Alaska when I was 16, 17, 18. And, everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's so cold. Well, at that age, you're invincible. Yeah. Now I might think a little bit because it's a dry cold versus a wet cold. But the idea is now we're in an environment to where we have to acclimate. And I believe at a younger age, they can acclimate so much easier. And that provision is going to help us, the rest of us, saying, hey, there's nothing wrong about this. Let's get with together, right?
Yeah, they tell me sometimes I'll forget my mask and they're like, Mommy, you forgot your mask. They adapted so much faster and so much easier. And everybody was worried about the kids. Oh, how are they going to do it in school? But I feel like
having teachers that understand this is what's going to keep them there and teaching and would go with it, whether you believe it or not, just this is what the rules are. We do it, we get it done. And the second thing, if you think about, now I'm much older than you, but look at the car seat. When I was growing up, hanging out the tailgate, sleeping up in the bay window in the back of the sedan of the car, sleeping on the.
I remember I have stories. I recall sitting in the front seat with my mom holding me. And I remember one time we were in a station wagon with my cousin sitting in the middle in the front. And then he would take the steering wheel and try to, move it. And somebody would yell at him, you can't touch the steering wheel.
So the point is that the kids, when my kids came along, because they're all adults now, and they would go, Mom, where's your seatbelt? Because like you said, they're adjusting it. So very, very cool. All right. So very awesome. So what else do we have on that? What else on the rule book do we need to know about?
All right. So now if you apply for, one other thing regarding the new loans is that nonprofits can now apply and housing co-ops can now apply. So before they weren't, now they're able to. So those, if you're fall in those buckets, go and apply.
So hey, real quick. So the nonprofits, think about this. Most people who work in the real estate community either work with a nonprofit, own a nonprofit because they want to give back to their community. So the idea is that if you're not going to do it for your brokerage or your group that's with that, you're going to do it for your nonprofit.
Yeah.
So make sure that
for both.
Well, it's like myself. I have multiple triple P loans because of the different companies and organizations that I run. Right. I want to make sure that each one gets its own fair share instead of saying, let me rely on my savings or relying on my, own net worth. What is that company contributing? Because those employees need to stay employed that run each of those departments. So love it.
All right, so now if you applied for a loan back in 2020 and it was under 150,000, they made it easier for forgiveness. It's a one-page form and it's essentially an automatic forgiveness, but you still have to go through the whole process of filling out that one-page form. So you still have to contact your bank. But if it's 150,000 or less, you're not, you're in an easy way to move forward with the forgiveness.
Now, I heard where the banks are the ones who ultimately are the ones that approve it because you took it out with them.
Yes.
And then it goes through the SBA, and a lot of banks right now have put a pause on it because the fact is that they haven't got the confirm. Even though you submitted, I think there was like 100,000 had gone through the system nationally, that they put a pause on it. Because they were like, wait a second, until we get the new ruling and what the changes are, then we have to redo everything. It's like they're saying, well, we're just going to hang on tight.
Now, I only know of one client of mine that has gotten their forgiveness. I have many other clients who put in their paperwork, but they're still waiting. Have you heard of people getting forgiveness? No. Or not yet? No. So it's only been
yeah. So I believe that those who put it in the day of and or a couple days after.
Yeah, I believe that's what they
did the process. Yeah.
Yeah, they did it right away. So now, excuse me. Also with this new COVID relief, the second round, the final forgiveness is not going to be reduced by your EIDL grant. EIDL is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's the $10,000 that a lot of people applied for. Originally, they were going to reduce your forgiveness by that $10,000. Now it's no longer. So another welcome change. And also
that's really important because I felt it was a disconnect, because the whole purpose of that grant money was to give you money now and not wait for the EIDL line to get approved. And what happened is that the PPP loan got approved first. The EIDL loan, just the $1,000 per employee up to $10,000, that actually was granted after the EIDL loan was approved. So between the PPP being one day, a month later, the EIDL loan got approved, and then 2 weeks later, then that grant easy money, came in, and you're like, so what was the disconnect of that money was supposed to be before the other two?
Yeah, it was all over the place.
So just FYI. So that's why I think that from a perspective of them saying, if you got that money, that it should not be deductible for the PPP loan, because you're like, okay, so if I got the full amount, why would I get this extra money when it didn't matter?
Yeah, and they were two separate things. They should have been combined, but so now they're not. And also they extended the EIDL loan. So if you did not apply for one, you have until December 31st, 2021 to apply.
It's a whole year.
Yes, a whole year, but why wait? If you need it, go for it now, because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, so.
Well, that's the other thing is that that's a perfect segment into the rules that if you applied for if you got the loan of the PPP before, I think it was June 6th or June 8th, you have a certain criteria that you get to write off based on your loan funding versus after in 2020. And I believe that as the dates and the time of where you get your loan, whether it's round one, round two, the dates you got the round funding, those rules are all changing. So it's kind of like, do you take advantage of it now? Do you wait an next year? And it's like, do you take Social Security? I mean, not to throw out a curveball here, but it's like, if you need it now and you can use the money, take advantage of it now and move with it. Even at 3.25% interest, that money is cheaper than if you borrowed at a credit card. That money's cheaper than anywhere else. And you can't get that. I mean, here we've had for how many decades getting a small business loan, especially for women or women-owned businesses or minority or anything, getting that access to capital has been horrific. I mean, really, really bad. So I tell everyone, when it comes to the PPP loan or the EIDL loan for the SBA, this is a gateway, in my opinion, to the passive open up and say, take them. Now, don't just sit on them for 6 years. Take them and use them, because it is to your advantage. And those who need for the PPP, and you can write it off as a forgiveness, utilize it. Those who want to take the money to do something with that have been impacted because they know that the setup, because it's not about how much money you made. It could be your actual revenue that you're on a trajectory going up like this, and COVID hits and your trajectory went like this or down, so it's your loss of revenue.
Well, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help your revenue, and it's supposed to keep your employees, so you don't lay off employees. That is essentially the purpose of this, to keep your business going while we're going through this pandemic. I do have a client who took out the PPP loan back in March. He's a self-employed individual, had no idea what his 2020 year going to look like, but he ended up having a great year. And he still actually is holding the funds, and he said, I'm going to hold it. I have it just in case until I need to. And then if I don't use it, I'll just give it back. But March, nobody knew what was going to happen.
Yep.
Some business did well, some businesses didn't. And it all depends on where you are. But in March, everybody thought all businesses were going to fail. So, if you can try to take it. If you use it, great. Use it for the things that they say you can use it for. And if not, either give it back or do the loan.
Yeah. And that's where, you hear these stories where people pivoted they turned the dial, I call it, to where, coin a phrase from the G20, a G200 group. They turn the dial on, okay, so I'm doing this, but now that I can't make money doing this because I can't physically have it, well, I can start doing this work, and I can actually make money by using that money to keep my income coming. So it's not just, in my opinion, the idle loan is not just about what my existing business was. I can change my business model, expand it, contract it, like the restaurants, and contract it, what kind of food they're serving, to 3 items on the menu versus 15 items on the menu. That is what's so powerful of not looking at for just a silo, but opening up your expansion of what you've got to have to get done.
All right. So another item with the new tax law, or with the COVID relief, is that the employee retention credit, which is a refundable tax credit on your payroll tax form. Originally, they said that if you took out a PPP loan, you weren't eligible for this credit. Now it is refundable, so you can do both. And they extended the credit through July 1st, 2021. So when you're doing your payroll taxes, your 941, your federal form 941, make sure you apply for that credit.
There you go.
Okay. So that was our second item. And I guess our third item is going to be how it relates to your individual tax return, or some other things. So one of them is it's for charitable contributions.
Okay.
Now, in 2018, when there was a big tax overhaul, a lot of individuals were no longer able to itemize. And when you itemize, you were able to take advantage of charitable contributions that you were making. Not that you should still make your charitable contributions, but you just didn't get a tax benefit for it. Now for 2020, they added a line. It's called an above line deduction, which means it's before you get to your adjusted gross income. You can take up to $300 of charitable contributions that you made in 2020 against your income. So even if you take the standard deduction, and in 2021 that was increased to $600. So you can take.
So you can give $300 to any nonprofit and write it off directly off of your gross receipts.
Adjusted gross income.
Adjusted gross income, which is even better.
Yeah.
To make sure that everyone's contributing to them, and that way you lose nothing, because the fact is that you're getting it come back with it. Love it.
Right, exactly. And in 2021, it's $600. So it goes up a little bit. And then now if you do itemize for the taxpayers, and who can, for high net worth individuals who can give a lot of money out to charity, they can, if they make cash contributions to a public charity, instead of being limited to 60% of your adjusted gross income, now it's 100% of your adjusted gross income. So you can, use a lot of it, a big portion of it. So if that is something that somebody can do, that is great, and it is available for you. And then one last thing, this is really for businesses, is that meals and entertainment are now going to be fully deductible for tax years 21 and 22. So for businesses or Schedule C, if you're self-employed, in the past, you were only able to deduct up to 50% of your meals and entertainment. For tax years 21 and 22, it's a full 100%. So they want people to go out there and to, get back into meeting with clients, meeting with prospective businesses, and fully deduct that expense.
Now, does that mean, did I hear you that you have to, is the meal that if you do takeout versus an in-room dining, because obviously here in California, we don't have in-room dining like in a lot of states they do. So anything that we have food that's bought outside, that's not going to the grocery store by going to, restaurants and things like that, is that considered deductible?
It doesn't matter if it's takeout or in dining, but it has to be used for business. So if you're getting takeout to meet with a client of yours in your backyard, that would count. But if you're taking takeout to eat for dinner, that doesn't count because that's not a business expense.
Right.
It's a personal expense. So it all depends on what the purpose of that is.
Well, the idea is that if you're sheltered in place, they want you to do digital communication. But the idea is that it still needs to go outside and healthy. So the less risk being outside, having dinner in your backyard, sitting 10 feet apart from each other versus 6 feet apart, having food brought to you that we have paper and plastic. Mm-hmm. You can have a conductive meeting and still get to see the vibe and feel the vibe. Right. One of the things that I talk about all the time in the digital world is that you lose a sense of connectivity because you don't get to smell them. You don't get to really see their whole body. You don't know what I'm wearing on the bottom half of this, but I am wearing the same matching pants because I am coronated. Anyway,
I won't stand up.
So the idea is that by having that environment that you get to really sense and feel that energy that someone's there, because you lose the distortion here that you see here because you only see my hands. You don't get to see what's happening with my body language, which I believe is more important than what comes out, because you get to, they say 55% of your entire aura is how you look. Well, you only get to see this much of me, right? And the old standing joke is that when you wear your face mask, you don't have to wear lipstick anymore because you're doing this, right?
I have a lot of lipstick on my face mask. I have to keep washing it because I get lipstick. Yeah. And then I hate how you can't tell when people, like if I smile a lot and people can't see that you're smiling. And
you can see it through your eyes.
That's what they say, but
well, you have to realize that when people say that eyes don't lie, there's a huge study on it. I learned this, believe it or not, when I started my real estate career in 1990. God, that's over 30 years ago. But anyway, when I started my career, that the component is that you have to look at the person's eye. The body language speaks one way, but the eyes tell the truth. So if a person looks up away or the person rolls their eyes, which is very common, you can see. But if a person has to go and look in another place, and the way they do it is whether they're trying to come up with a story. Then you have another way of looking if someone's trying to recall, information and try to put together because it's so long ago that event happened. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that the lies cannot and will not lie. So you can see when someone's going to start crying. You can see when someone's really hurt because the way they swell up. And then one of the most sensitive parts of your body are your eyelids. And so that's why the torture, not to bring that in, but the idea is that the impact is by seeing it. So when you look at someone and you're wearing your mask, so think about what are their eyes telling you, and then you should be able to see the smile through their mask. So just FYI, this little side tidbit.
It's something to learn, just another thing to add on to the way we interpret.
So you're supposed to intently look. Don't go there because then it just says, and I just had eye surgery because I lost 50% of my peripheral vision in the last 2 years. I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, okay, this is fine. So I just had my stitches literally removed 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So because now I have a line across here that I can actually see this, where before I could only see this.
Amazing. And you had no idea you couldn't see that.
I had no idea because I thought that the eye fold had to cover the eye body to not be able to see. I didn't realize that when you're focused this way and it drops, that you're not seeing this, because if I have good vision here, you're not seeing what you're missing until you have a full-on eye test.
Interesting.
And the damage is driving or someone coming you from an angle.
Yeah, on the opposite side.
Didn't know. All right, so what else can we give tidbits that's going to be so different than anyone else?
All right, that pretty much is everything that I had, but I do have one last one, and it's the employee deferral payroll.
Okay.
The bill extended it from that you can to repay it back. It was originally, if you did that, you had to pay it back April 30th. Now you don't have to pay it back until December 31st. That's the employee payroll tax deferral that President Trump signed into law earlier or towards the end of 2020.
So what does that mean exactly?
So for starting, if you have an employee and you could have deferred their Social Security and I believe Medicare also tax payments, you didn't have to pay it in right away. You could have said, you know what, I don't want to pay it in now. I'm going to wait until April 2021 for the fourth quarter of 2020. But now instead of paying it back in April, you have until December of 2021 to pay it back. So it's just your 6.5% of Social Security and 1.45 Medicare.
So
on an employer. So this is an employer option. A lot of employers chose not to do it because they didn't want to be held responsible for it later on, because you eventually have to pay it back. It's part of it. So most employers I know chose not to do it, but if you did do it, you now have until the end of the year to pay it back, not April.
So here, this is a perfect scenario that we talked about earlier. You're self-employed, and let's say you have some employees on payroll, and you have a pass-through because you're an S corp, and you're not sure what your adjusted and craziness and everything's going to be working on, and what your actual pay is going to be, and you have a triple P loan. Do I take a salary? Do I not? What's going on to that thing? And we talked about that. You made a comment saying that the Schedule C is where if you're self-employed, that you would process it. So how does that play into the factor? We talked about the employer. So if I'm the employer, but I'm self-employed versus not having employees. So let's have a little scenario to help everyone on that.
Okay, so if you are a self-employed individual, which means you file a Schedule C on your personal tax return, you do not need to give yourself a W-2.
Okay.
You can just take the net, you will pay tax on the net income of that Schedule C. That's what you're going to be paying tax on. And whatever cash that generates from this business is your cash. So it's irrelevant how much cash it generates, as long as your net income, that's what you're paying tax on. So you don't have to worry about cutting yourself a W-2 check or anything, or going through the whole payroll system. You're going to be paying your employer taxes, yours and the employee and the employer portion, all on your personal tax return. So you don't have to worry about doing it beforehand or doing a W-2. Now, if you have employees, you could still be a Schedule C. The income to yourself, you pay tax on the net income, and you could also have employees. Now, for those employees, you would issue W-2s and go through the whole payroll system. And that is, for those employees, is what that deferral is related to, the employees that are for you.
Okay, so the question is that if you're self-employed and then you still have employees that are on a payroll, and we're talking about the triple P loan in itself, and we're looking at that 60% product, and some of us, let's say, had employees that left, changed their careers, went into different things, that left on their own, and so finding replacements was difficult. And I know you just have to say that yes, you try to find the replacements and things like that, and go through the process. But to make sure you had 60%, this is really good that I have my phone on. Let's say that you have to go through that whole process to make sure that you have enough money to write off to make sure you meet the 60%. and you say, okay, well, wait a second, if I pay myself the Schedule C, how does that play into the space if you have the employees that you're already paying, and then you say, I haven't taken a salary, I can now take a salary and be applied to the triple P pay forgiveness part. Does that work okay? Is that okay option?
Yeah, so your salary is essentially the net income of that Schedule C. So you would show that on, maybe I guess on the application or whichever way, but when you're self-employed, that's what they're basing it on, is the net income and the forgiveness of that.
Okay, so can you be self-employed and own a company?
You can have, well, single member LLCs do not need to file a separate tax return.
Okay.
So that is a Schedule C. So that could be your company. I mean, yes, you can be self-employed and own a company. You could be self-employed and your company's name, I could be Maya Khan, self-employed, and my company's name is Khan CPA. So yes, that could be. I could also have a Schedule C, be self-employed for one business, and also have, like you said, an S corporation for another type of business. You could also have a partnership.
Okay.
And every type of entity has different rules. For a S corporation, the owner needs to get a W-2, is what's considered reasonable compensation. You have to think what is a reasonable compensation for that for that job, and that's what the owner should be getting paid through W-2. Now, as a partnership, an owner does not get a W-2. They get guaranteed payments if they were going to pay themselves out. And then for a Schedule C self-employed, there's nothing. It's just the net cash that's left at the end of the day. That's your money because it's just your own self-employed. So every entity is different, and it's very complicated, and you have to really think about it and ask questions and talk to your CPA and
this whole idea of having a CPA, sorry, the whole idea of having a CPA understanding has a whole new level of meaning in this current environment, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, your value add just went ding, because the cost of paying you can offset what you could save by knowing, hence our call, know the rules of the game.
Exactly. You gotta know the rules.
I mean, that's why we trademarked this 2 years ago, because to know the rules of the game, you can play the game. And that was a saying that I had as a child, that you have to, if I only knew I could have saved X, or I only knew I could have done Y. And that is what's so powerful about this podcast, is making it go through. So let me retract, let me clarify here. So on a limited, on a partnership, you said that obviously we went through that, but as far as on a self-employed, I got that one. But on an S corp, aren't you considered, the pass-through on the income goes through, then you put it on a Schedule C because it's a pass-through? So you're saying that I still, even though it's an S corp, not a C corp, but on an S corp, I still have to take a W-2 or a reasonable salary?
Yes, because income that flows through on an S corp is not subject to self-employment tax on your personal return. And that's why you need to take W-2, because how is that individual paying the self-employment tax, the Social Security and Medicare? So they're going to be paying it through their W-2. That's why. But a partnership, the income, the net income flow through, same idea, the flow through, but that income is subject to self-employment tax on your personal return. I honestly don't know why they did it this way. There must be a reason. But I don't know what it is. Maybe that's something.
No, that's totally fair. I love it. I love it. So, wow. So see, the nuts and bolts of this is that, yeah, we can look at the checklist, but I want to make sure that everyone is reminded that the impact that we have of the change of and thank you for the question that I just got, is that when can we expect the release? When can we expect the updates of the changes? And that we don't know. Yes, it's supposed to be out in a couple of days, but given the state of events that's going on right now, yeah, that's a whole nother playground. And then what's going on in the SBA, I do know that the SBA just put out, and let me answer the second question. Sorry about that. Is the revisions. The first time, I believe we had 7 or 8 revisions on the first triple P loan that came out in March. And they first started coming out like every 2 weeks, and then it came out like, okay, well, you're changing this little tweak and that little tweak, and then they had a major release, and I think it's 6,000 pages is this COVID relief platform, is it not?
Yeah, it's about 5,500 pages. Yeah.
So 50, did you read all 55?
Every single page.
And you can recite it, photographic memory there. So the idea is that everyone needs to make sure this is the guidelines as we know today. They haven't been officially published. They just have, it's still sitting on Trump's desk to be signed.
No, he signed it.
Sorry, not signed. It's still sitting on the interpretation to be released. Sorry about that. Apologize. And the idea is that once it's released and the interpretation is from training modules and going through it, and then they'll find out that, oh, we didn't mean the interpretation. And what this is one of the things that I want to make sure everyone knows about is that when the first Triple P came out and it said 500 employees, and that was the only guiding line of the small business, people don't realize that the SBA has what are called NACE codes, and the NACE codes are what define each of the industries. In the real estate brokerage community, if I just break it down to that, it's $7.5 million of gross receipts is what's considered a small business in the real estate brokerage community, which is the 5,300 mark. And so when you start seeing that these people were getting up to $10 million, remember people who build bridges, they have a $50 million limit, and some of the other companies are huge. And so when they put on the small business application, that was for size of employees, and that was it. That was not about the actual size of the NACE codes that the SBA is what's related to, right? And the other thing that people had to realize that you have Berkshire Hathaway that has less than 50 employees. How many trillions of dollars? You know, where are they sitting in the plan, or close to a trillion, whatever it is? It's huge. So the idea is that we need to realize that we're looking at the size of employees, not the size of revenue coming in. And that would happen in first Triple E. So now we went from 500 employees to 300 employees, and they really started looking at how many franchises we had, where they're publicly traded and everything else. And that's what I believe is the intended value to get to the small businesses and help everyone understand that you can also apply in multiple banks, not just one, to make sure that you get in the process. And that was a really bad misnomer that happened on the first end, is that one bank would be not allowing you to apply because you didn't have an account there. And then someone else, the small businesses, the small banks, the regional banks, were not getting access to the capital the same way that the bigger banks were doing.
Yeah, that happened a lot. And you didn't have to apply at the bank where you normally banked at. You could have gone to any other bank if they were.
Right.
But I think it ended up with our clients is that the people who were able to get it the fastest is the ones that had relationships with their banks. And they tended to be the smaller banks, not the big national banks that the money came fast. It was just the smaller ones.
Yeah, and some of them didn't even have an open portal for weeks, months.
Oh yeah, right. It took a long time, and I'm sure that when the forgiveness starts, when people start going, it's going to be as difficult and as gruesome as it was to apply.
Yes, and one of the other thing is I like to say that the draw they said is up to 3.5 times versus 2.5 times. I saw that in the rule book. All right, cool. So I'm very excited about this. There's also, I wanted to talk about, give us a couple minutes about the fact that there's some grant programs. And Maya, tell me about what's going on the East Coast, that you found a couple programs out there.
Yeah, so there's a few grants that are available. One is by New York State. It's called the New York Forward Loan Fund. And it's for small businesses. It's a loan, it's not a grant, but it's a low interest. And I have here my notes. But the problem with this one is that if you took a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, you wouldn't be eligible for it. So you can look that up. Another one is for women-owned businesses. There is this program called Women's Net, and it's in New York. And it's a great foundation, just from reading about it. And every month they reward a different women-owned business $10,000. You just have to you have to fill out an application, and they will every month is $10,000, and then at the end of the year, one of those businesses will get another $25,000. So there you can get up to 35 within a year. And then the last one is a New York City Small Business Continuity Fund. It's a zero interest loan. And if it's for fewer than 100 employees, and you have to show your revenue decreased by 25%, and your loan can be up to $75,000. So that's a New York City loan if you are a business running out of New York City.
I love it. Okay, so in California, we got the California Relief Bill, and that is going to get, it has $500 million in its kitty. It's open right now. The application time has been extended to January 13th, and they'll give you a grant. So that means they give you the money, $5,000, $10,000, or $25,000.
That's great.
And the idea is that they want you to use it for primarily, obviously, to pay your salary and for rent are the two main ones, but they have other things you can use it for. And it's for up to $100,000. You get $5,000 your gross revenue coming in, and then it's $10,000 and $25,000. But the cool thing is that here they're giving you the money, and it's a subsidiary of the state doing it. And you have to use your state partners like the SBDC and some of the other great programs that are out there. And they're geared for those industries. It's not about when you submitted it. It's about, as long as you get in the deadline by January 13th, it's all about the industries who are impacted the most. And do you classify yourself under the classifications like women-owned, veteran-owned, disabled veteran, you know, minority, down, LGBTQ, you name it. So the idea is they're really trying to focus on the underserved businesses in addition to the industries that have been impacted the most.
January 13th, you have a week, so.
Yes, free money. I mean, right. Okay, so let's recap. Well, we went a little bit over our time, but I'm thrilled that we did. What are my 3 rules, and what is the tip of the day that you'd like to give for us?
All right, 3 rules are PPP loans. If you can get them, go get them. They are no longer tax deductible. Sorry, they're included in income. So that's 1, a lot of changes. 2, you're getting your stimulus checks and your unemployment. And 3, go out and get your charitable contributions. You have up to $600 in 2021. Give it out to not-for-profits. Those are my 3 tips right there.
I love it, because we're here to help keep the people who we can't go eat and be with. We have those extended laws. We're here to help the food banks. We're here to help the people that have a nonprofit, not the big ones, the little ones that are singly run, or maybe 2 or 3 or a family doing it. And then the other thing is that apply. Don't worry about, submit, be truthful, submit what you can. And if they give it to you, you don't need it, great. If they don't get it, you'll understand. So you go through the process. This is not rocket scientists. And most importantly, it's not that long process. I think when I applied for my PPP loans, it took me 15 minutes.
Oh,
I mean, it's trivial. So and the EIDL loans was even quicker. So the idea is that make sure you apply for this, because you don't want to say, I wish I've known, I would have, I could have. So they've extended everything to get it done. But if you don't get on the horn and get it done now and think I can do it later, you don't know. With the current changes of everything that's going on, nothing's in concrete anymore. That is the most important thing that I can add to it.
And all right, so I think that was great. Be truthful in your application, and then that's it. That's all you need.
So how do we get a hold of you? If someone loves you and would like to work with you and get to know more about what you guys offer, especially Abe and you and everyone else, what can we do?
Oh, I'm very excited. I'm on LinkedIn, Maya Khan, on LinkedIn, or look me up on, I don't know if I give you my phone number, my cell phone. No.
You're welcome to give your website, email, whatever you'd like.
So markspaneth.com is the firm. My email is mkhan@markspaneth.com, KHAN. Or find me on LinkedIn.
Very cool. So MAYAKHAN.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And so you're quite welcome. I enjoyed this. It was so much fun. So next week, we're going to have Tiffany Curry. We're going to talk about building several different platforms and keep achieving. It really amplifies it. She's an NAWRB certified delegate spokeswoman. So we're very excited to have her next week. And also, again, like I said, this month is every day. We'd love to see who and what you're doing to keep achieving. So make sure you have the hashtag NDLC 10 principles and hashtag keep achieving, because the idea is in 2021, our goal is to keep everyone moving and be inspirational in what you're doing, because if we don't have the envelope of being happy, being excited, moving, and we all have our moments. To see something, someone else doing it, so drives energy. So let's share our energy. And thank you very much. And you can find us at NRB.com. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook. We have multiple pages for NDSA Council. In addition to on every social media platform that's out there. This is recorded. If you missed it, it's on Anchor. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on iTunes, and obviously our website. So thank you very much, and have a great day. And please, please, please stay healthy and stay safe. So chime out. Thank you very much, and have a great one.